Hello, beautiful Libra. As August 11 and 12 unfold, something subtle may begin shifting beneath the surface, not necessarily because everything around you is changing, but because you are seeing more clearly what deserves your energy and what no longer does. There is a quieter invitation here to step away from familiar patterns that may have once brought comfort but now leave you feeling slightly disconnected from yourself, and to consider whether the peace you have been protecting is truly nourishing you or simply asking you to remain silent. This period carries a thoughtful blend of movement and reflection, encouraging you to make room for a version of yourself that feels more honest and less shaped by the expectations of others. Opportunities for growth may appear through ordinary moments of conversation you did not expect, a new perspective at work, or an interaction that causes you to reconsider something you thought you had already figured out. Pay attention to the people who help you think more clearly, rather than simply telling you what you want to hear, because the right connection can gently challenge an old assumption and open a door you had not considered before. You may also notice that your instincts become clearer when you stop trying to weigh every possibility at once. Not every decision needs to satisfy everyone involved, and not every disagreement means something has gone wrong. Sometimes honesty is simply the beginning of a healthier kind of balance. As you move through these 2 days, give yourself permission to notice where you have been overextending, accommodating, or carrying more emotional responsibility than truly belongs to you. And begin bringing some of that attention back home to yourself. Your well-being becomes part of that recalibration. Choose experiences, people, and spaces that leave you feeling more settled in your own skin rather than quietly depleted. And remember that caring for yourself does not make you less generous or less loving. In fact, when your boundaries are clear, your relationships have more room to become genuine, because you are meeting others from a place of choice rather than obligation. There is a difference between compromise and self-abandonment, Libra, and recognizing that difference may become one of the more meaningful shifts in your perspective. The energy around you also encourages steady movement toward what genuinely matters to you. A setback does not have to mean you are moving in the wrong direction. Sometimes it simply reveals which path no longer fits the person you are becoming. Notice the small signals you usually move past, the feeling a conversation leaves in your body, the relief that follows one decision, or the heaviness that appears when you agree to something your heart has already questioned. Your intuition may speak quietly, especially when your mind is busy comparing every possible outcome. Listen for the choices that bring a sense of inner alignment, rather than simply the ones that keep everything externally comfortable. Across August 11 and 12, the deeper shift may be less about something dramatic arriving from outside you and more about becoming honest enough to recognize what you are ready to choose, what you are ready to release, and what deserves a more balanced place in your life. People may not always tell you how much they appreciate the way you show up for them, Libra, but you can often sense it in the way they come looking for you when something in their world feels uncertain. There is a steadiness in the way you listen, consider different sides, and help someone find a little more perspective when they cannot see beyond the emotion of the moment. Still, these 2 days invite you to notice an important distinction. Being someone others trust does not mean you have to carry every problem they place in your hands. Your generosity is part of what makes your presence meaningful, but it becomes healthier when it has boundaries around it. Across August 11 and 12, social encounters may bring you into rooms, conversations, or connections that expand your perspective in ways you did not expect, especially when you allow yourself to meet people without immediately deciding what role you need to play in their lives. Your curiosity may draw you toward new ideas and unfamiliar viewpoints, yet your real strength comes from knowing when to participate, when to listen, and when to let another person walk their own path without trying to quietly steer it for them. That awareness may become especially important if someone close to you approaches with a conflict of their own. Your natural instinct may be to soften the edges, understand every side, and search for the words that can bring people back toward common ground. And there is real value in that gift. But diplomacy does not mean avoiding the truth simply because the truth might make someone uncomfortable. If you are asked to help, offer perspective without taking ownership of the outcome. And be careful that criticism does not become a substitute for compassion when what the other person really needs is to feel understood. There is also a quieter opening around learning and personal development. Something you read, hear, study, or discover may awaken a genuine curiosity in you, reminding you that growth does not always arrive through dramatic change. Sometimes it begins with one idea that makes you question an assumption you have carried for a long time. You may realize that some activities deserve less of your attention so that you can make room for the ones that actually move you forward. And that kind of editing can feel surprisingly freeing when your life has become crowded with too many competing priorities. Your mind may have been holding several possibilities at once, weighing one choice against another, and trying to anticipate how every decision might affect everyone involved. Now, the invitation is to bring some of that mental noise into a clearer order. Ask yourself what genuinely matters, what is simply familiar, and what you have continued maintaining because changing it might disturb the balance around you. You already have more clarity than you may realize, but it becomes easier to access when you stop believing that every choice has to leave everyone completely satisfied. And there is a deeper message beneath this shift. You may have been spending precious energy repairing something that was never entirely yours to repair. Perhaps you've been trying to restore a relationship, resolve another person's disappointment, or keep a situation stable long after it became clear that you could not control every part of it. Across August 11 and 12, the more meaningful release may come from recognizing where your responsibility ends, allowing other people to carry their portion, and giving yourself permission to move forward without waiting for everything behind you to be perfectly resolved. The Chariot enters this story as a symbol of direction. For Libra, its strength is not about rushing ahead or forcing an outcome. It is about choosing a path after spending enough time considering your options. When you have been standing between competing possibilities, trying to understand every perspective before deciding, there comes a point when discernment has done its work and your own inner direction deserves to be heard. The movement here is toward greater decisiveness, where you can act without needing certainty about every step that comes afterward. The star brings another layer, speaking to the quieter restoration that happens when you begin trusting yourself again. If disappointment, imbalance, or difficult relationships have made you question your instincts, this card can symbolize the gradual return of hope without asking you to become naive about what happened before. You are learning that keeping your heart open does not require you to ignore what you have learned, and that healing can mean becoming more discerning while still allowing yourself to believe that something healthier is possible. Then comes the Ace of Cups, carrying the feeling of an emotional space beginning to open. For some Libras, this may speak through a relationship, but it does not have to mean a sudden romance or a guaranteed new person entering your life. It can be a sincere conversation, a renewed willingness to receive affection, or the realization that you no longer want connections where you are constantly questioning whether your needs matter. The deeper invitation is toward reciprocity, where giving and receiving can exist together without one person continually shrinking themselves to preserve the bond. The Seven of Pentacles asks you to look carefully at what you have already invested in. Your relationships, work, creative efforts, and personal growth all contain seeds of something you have been patiently developing. But patience does not mean continuing forever, simply because you have already given something your time. The wiser question is whether the soil is still capable of supporting what you are trying to grow. As you reflect on August 11 and 12, you may become more aware of which efforts are quietly producing meaningful progress and which ones are asking for energy without offering anything nourishing in return. Finally, the King of Pentacles brings the image of grounded self-worth. For Libra, this is less about becoming dominant and more about becoming secure enough in your own value that you no longer need constant external confirmation before trusting your decisions. Stability begins to look different when it comes from within. You can appreciate recognition without depending on it, collaborate without disappearing into other people's expectations, and build something lasting without sacrificing the parts of yourself that make the achievement meaningful. Financial stability may begin to feel less like something you have to constantly chase and more like something you can build with greater intention. If you have recently felt overlooked, undervalued, or uncertain about whether your efforts were being noticed, these 2 days invite you to reconsider what your own sense of worth is built upon. The King of Pentacles reminds you that claiming your value does not require becoming louder than everyone else. Sometimes it means standing calmly behind what you know you bring to the table and allowing your choices to reflect that understanding. When it comes to your well-being, the message is much simpler. Listen to your body without becoming fearful of every unfamiliar sensation. You may be someone who keeps moving even when you need rest, especially when other responsibilities are competing for your attention. So August 11 and 12 can be a useful reminder to notice whether your routines are genuinely supporting you or simply keeping you occupied. If something physical concerns you, give it appropriate attention and seek professional guidance when necessary. But do not turn ordinary uncertainty into a reason to become anxious about your health. There is also a quiet lesson here about consistency. Taking care of yourself does not have to mean creating a perfect routine or controlling every detail of your day. It can simply mean developing habits that make your life feel more sustainable. When your body feels supported and your mind has enough room to breathe, you become better able to recognize which demands deserve your attention and which ones can wait. That kind of steadiness creates a foundation from which you can make clear choices without constantly feeling pulled in several directions. Your career carries an encouraging theme, especially if you have been questioning whether your professional efforts are truly aligned with the life you want to build. Work may occupy a significant place in your world, but these 2 days ask you to look at what success actually means to you, rather than automatically measuring it through recognition, status, or how much you can accomplish. Your ability to understand different perspectives, communicate thoughtfully, negotiate, and bring people toward common ground can become just as valuable as technical expertise, particularly in environments where collaboration matters. If you are employed, self-employed, or building something of your own, pay attention to where your contribution is genuinely appreciated and where you may have been giving more than the situation can reasonably return. Professional growth does not always arrive through a dramatic promotion or a sudden change in title. Sometimes it begins when you recognize that your time, skills, and attention deserve to be placed where they can develop further. If you are looking for work, focus on opportunities that actually connect with your abilities and values, rather than scattering your energy simply because you feel pressured to accept whatever appears first. Financially, the energy is less about sudden abundance and more about loosening an old relationship with fear. Perhaps previous experiences taught you to be cautious, especially when trusting people, making investments, or committing resources, and there is wisdom in that caution when it is grounded in experience rather than anxiety. Across August 11 and 12, you may find yourself looking at money through a calmer lens, asking not only, "Can I afford this?" but also, "Does this choice support the life I am trying to create?" Conversations, introductions, or ideas may draw your attention toward possibilities you had previously overlooked. Rather than treating every promising possibility as a sign that you must act immediately, give yourself room to consider the details, the people involved, and the long-term balance between what you give and what you receive. Libra's strength here is not simply careful thinking. It is the ability to recognize when something feels proportionate, sustainable, and genuinely aligned with your values, instead of being attractive only because it offers quick excitement. This is where the deeper financial lesson emerges. You do not have to choose between being generous and protecting your own stability, just as you do not have to prove your abundance by saying yes to every opportunity placed in front of you. Let your decisions become more deliberate, allowing confidence to grow from understanding rather than impulse. And notice how much easier it becomes to recognize opportunities when you are no longer trying to force every possibility into a perfect answer. And when it comes to love, balance becomes much more than an idea. It becomes something you can feel in the way two people meet each other. If you are in a relationship, you may be thinking more seriously about the shared direction you are creating together, including the values, plans, and everyday choices that give the relationship its deeper structure. When misunderstandings arise, they do not have to threaten the bond, but they do ask both people to listen honestly rather than quietly keeping score over who has sacrificed more. Your commitment to the relationship can be sincere without requiring you to carry it alone. Healthy love leaves room for two complete people to contribute, disagree, repair, and still feel respected afterward. Across these 2 days, you may become more aware of whether the relationship is being sustained through genuine reciprocity or through one person repeatedly adjusting themselves to keep everything peaceful. And that awareness can gently change the way you understand what lasting connection really asks of you. In a healthy relationship, affection is something both people help create through the small choices they make every day. You may find yourself wanting your partner to feel valued, appreciated, and genuinely welcomed in your life. But the deeper question is whether that care is flowing in both directions. Libra, love becomes more nourishing when you do not have to keep proving your devotion, because both people are willing to contribute, listen, adjust, and make space for each other in ways that feel natural rather than forced. Beyond attraction and physical chemistry, what gives a relationship staying power is the sense that two people are moving towards something they both recognize as meaningful. Shared plans, private hopes, ordinary routines, and the feeling that you can imagine a future together can create a kind of emotional steadiness that passion alone cannot provide. If things have felt strained between you and your partner, August 11 and 12 may be a useful time to consider whether there is still something tender underneath the frustration that deserves to be acknowledged rather than left untouched. Sometimes the ego makes love sound like a negotiation. It tells you that you have already reached out enough, that the other person should make the next move, or that showing vulnerability means giving away your power. But connection is not a courtroom where someone has to prove who tried harder, and keeping a private record of every sacrifice rarely creates the closeness you actually want. If there is something worth saying, say it with honesty rather than keeping silent simply because you are afraid of appearing to care more. That does not mean you should chase someone who continually gives you reasons to question your value. It means understanding the difference between making a sincere gesture and abandoning your own dignity in the hope that someone will finally respond differently. Real balance allows you to extend your hand without needing to control what the other person does with it, and that distinction may become especially meaningful as you move through these 2 days. If you are single, this is a good opportunity to become more honest about what you are actually seeking instead of focusing only on whether someone is interested in you. Perhaps recent experiences have felt scattered, or perhaps you have encountered connections that created excitement without giving you anything solid to build upon. Rather than turning that uncertainty into frustration, look more closely at the qualities that make you feel safe enough to be yourself, respected enough to speak openly, and free enough to remain a whole person within the relationship. If someone you were getting to know recently became distant or walked away, it is understandable if that left you disappointed. But disappointment does not automatically mean you missed your chance at love. Nor does every promising connection need to be pushed toward a defined outcome before it has had time to reveal what it truly is. Let a new connection breathe. Notice whether interest is mutual, and allow consistency to tell you more than chemistry alone ever could. Across August 11 and 12, the wiser approach may be to resist forcing an answer simply because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. You do not need to confess everything at once, make a dramatic promise, or turn an emerging connection into something larger before you understand its foundation. Sometimes the most emotionally mature choice is to stay present, remain curious, and allow another person's actions to become part of the information you are gathering, rather than filling every silence with assumptions. At home, the atmosphere may feel gentler as old misunderstandings become easier to approach without carrying the same emotional weight they once held. Conversations can become more open when people feel they are being heard rather than judged, and your willingness to remain calm may help create room for others to lower their defenses. Yet even here, harmony does not mean taking responsibility for everyone's feelings. You can offer practical support while still allowing each family member to own their part of the relationship. You may also begin noticing patterns that have existed in your family for much longer than you realized, especially around trust, communication, emotional distance, or the way people respond when conflict appears. Your own growth can quietly influence those patterns, not because you are responsible for changing everyone, but because one person choosing a healthier response can sometimes change the atmosphere of an entire conversation. As August 11 and 12 unfold, your renewed openness can create opportunities for warmer exchanges, while your boundaries help ensure that closeness does not require you to disappear inside other people's needs. Relationships that have felt distant may benefit from your ability to see more than one side, without immediately deciding who is right or wrong. That perspective can help you participate with compassion while still remaining honest about what you need, and it allows support to move in both directions instead of always flowing outward from you. In that balance, family connection can become less about repairing everything that happened before and more about creating a different way of relating to one another from here, with greater understanding and room for everyone to be heard. Your energy across August 11 and 12 may feel steady overall, although there could be moments when your patience becomes thinner than usual, especially if you have been absorbing too many expectations from the people or situations around you. If you notice irritation rising, pause before giving it a direction, because sometimes what feels like anger is simply the mind asking for more space than it has been given. For Libra, restoring balance does not always mean solving the problem immediately. Sometimes it begins with stepping back long enough to hear what your own reaction is trying to tell you. One of the strengths worth cultivating now is your ability to turn ideas into something meaningful through connection. You may have ambitions that are larger than you have allowed yourself to admit, and there is nothing wrong with wanting to build something that reflects your abilities, values, and vision. Your natural understanding of people can become an important part of that process. Whether you are developing a personal project, working with others, negotiating an opportunity, or simply finding a more creative way to move toward what matters to you. Let your ambition have structure, but do not make achievement the only measure of whether your life is moving in the right direction. There is another side to this growth that deserves equal attention. You can become so focused on maintaining momentum, responding to other people, or thinking about the next decision that you lose touch with the quieter part of yourself that needs meaning, beauty, reflection, and genuine rest. If you recently felt an emptiness you could not quite explain, you may not need another accomplishment to fill it. You may need more honest contact with your own inner world. Give yourself moments without performance or expectation, and allow silence, nature, reflection, creativity, or whatever genuinely restores your sense of connection to become part of your life again. This is especially meaningful because Libra often understands life through relationship and exchange. But your relationship with yourself deserves the same attention. Ask whether the life you are building feels emotionally inhabited, or whether you have simply become very good at keeping everything moving. A deeper sense of purpose can emerge when your choices begin reflecting what you actually value, rather than what seems most reasonable, impressive, or acceptable to everyone around you. For those of you studying, learning can become another path toward that deeper sense of direction. Your progress does not need to be measured by how quickly you reach the next milestone. There is value in allowing yourself to become genuinely curious about what you are learning, and noticing how each new idea changes the way you understand the world. Whether you are near the beginning of your studies or already approaching a major academic milestone, try not to overlook the experience itself while thinking about where it is supposed to lead you. Knowledge takes time to settle, and some of the most important things you learn may not reveal their value until much later. You may also discover that studying alongside other people, exchanging ideas, or allowing yourself to see a subject through a completely different perspective makes the experience richer. Your strength is not simply in collecting information, but in understanding how different pieces can connect and how one perspective can reshape another. Let yourself enjoy that process instead of treating every lesson as another task that must be completed, because there is a difference between pursuing knowledge and simply trying to get to the end of the road. When it comes to compatibility, the connections around you can be viewed through the qualities they awaken in you, rather than through a promise that one sign will automatically bring good fortune. With Taurus, you may find a grounding influence that helps you slow down and question whether every limitation you perceive is actually as permanent as it seems. Their steadiness can remind you that a decision does not always need to be rushed, and that sometimes confidence grows when you give an idea enough time to become real. With Cancer, the connection may speak more directly to emotional trust. Being around someone who makes you feel safe enough to lower your defenses can help you recognize strengths you sometimes overlook in yourself, especially the courage required to say what you genuinely feel. Their sensitivity may encourage you to move beyond simply keeping the peace and toward a form of honesty that creates deeper closeness. And with Capricorn, the dynamic may bring a practical sense of direction that helps turn possibilities into something more tangible. Their grounded approach can challenge you to give your ideas structure, while your own perspective can remind them that achievement is not the only measure of a meaningful life. Together, that contrast can create an interesting exchange in which different approaches do not have to compete. They can broaden the way you each understand what is possible. As you move through these 2 days, take what speaks to your experience and leave room for the parts that do not. A reading like this is not here to make your choices for you, but to give you another angle from which to consider the patterns already moving through your life. Your intuition remains important, especially when something sounds convincing on the surface but leaves you feeling quietly disconnected underneath. If this reading has offered you a moment of clarity or helped you look at something from a different perspective, you can support the channel through a like, the link in the description, or the QR code on screen. And if you are part of this community, thank you for being here and for bringing your own experiences, reflections, and energy into this space. Keep listening to what feels honest. Allow what does not fit to pass naturally, and continue noticing the places where a more balanced version of your life is beginning to take shape.